morning. Hello, Dashitale.
Yeah, good morning, Rinpoche.
Yeah. Sangye Chedan Zoye Chonam Lan Chanjo Bardo Dane Gyabzo Je Lage Choje Yebe Senam Dola Benje Sangye Jobara Jo Sangye Chedan Zoye Chonam Lan Chanjo Bardo Dane Gyabzo Lage Choje Yebe Senam Gye Dola Benje Sangye Jobara Jo Sangye Chedan Zoye Chonam Chanjo Bardo Nane Gyabzo Je Dagye Chuje Gibe Zanam Gye Dala Benjire Sangye Chubara Shu Za Shin Bu Egin Chuje Don Dama Shin Yende Oenge Bonden Sangye Shindo Mende Joy Naman Dai Shin Lam Je Borjo Yedama Guru Ratna Medala Gamniriyandara Yami. So last week we talked about the 14 views that the Buddha, the 14 opinions that the Buddha did not share with. Another name for that is the so in another name for that in Tibetan we call it Lungma Ten Kitange Chupshi. Lungma Ten means not spoken by the Buddha. And the reason it's called not spoken by the Buddha, as we know, is because Buddha kept silent when the question was posed to him. And it's called Ta Nyen. Tawa is view, Nyemba means wrong view. Chupshi is 14. So basically the short name for another way to call this in Tibetan is the 14 wrong views that the Buddha has not spoken upon. So in any case, it's the 14 views that the Buddha did not share his view with. So that is, we touched upon that subject a little bit last week, but now we will continue, go deeper. Yeah. Generally speaking, in Buddha Dharma, when we talk about the karma, that is the positive and karma and the negative karma, and then is the neutral karma or the neutral action. The positive ones, you know that there's a 10 negative karma, right? So the opposite of the 10 negative karma is the 10 positive karma, like killing, stealing. These are the negative karma. Then the opposite of that is the positive side. Instead of killing someone, giving life to someone, giving something to instead of stealing, which is taking other people's possession. When you give something to someone, that is positive. So there is the positive karma, which is what we call virtue. Then there is the negative karma, what we call non-virtue, or sinful deeds. And then there is the neutral, like when you just if you just take a walk, just take a walk in the street, that is not positive, not negative. It's just a neutral action. So generally, the term Lung Ma Ten, which means the one that the Buddha did not share opinion, is reserved for the neutral actions. Usually, Lung Ma Ten means neutral action. Usually, generally speaking, but here it means differently. The term lung means quote. Lung means quote. Ten means to spoken or shared. And ma is a negative word. So ma ten means not shared. Not shared in the Buddha's quote. It basically means that's the literal translation of lung ma ten, which means not shared in the Buddha's teachings. But that does not mean Buddha actually did not share anything about this. What it means is Buddha did not share whether it's a positive or negative. So when the Buddha did not say this is positive or this is negative, then it's called that the things that were not specified by the Buddha, longmaten. In generally speaking, longmaten is the term reserved for the neutral actions. But here it refers to the 14 wrong views, 14 wrong ideas that one should be aware of and then try to avoid them. So I think we talked about this last week. So the process of asking questioning the Buddha. So it looks like a very innocent kind of question, but it was actually posed in a very philosophical way. It was actually an interrogation of the Buddha by the the heretics. So the question was posed, as I mentioned last week, in tetralemma process. So yes, no, both, and neither. So that kind of question. So so when you ask a question in that process, then it leaves nothing out. So there were 4 questions regarding the Tathagata's demise, 4 questions regarding past, 4 questions regarding future, and then 2 questions regarding body and life, life force. So the question was that after the demise, after the death, does the Tathagata still go on or not? Tathagat, right? Still, as I mentioned earlier, Tathagat in general meaning Tathagat is reserved for the Buddha. Here it means just here it is referring to just anybody, because we all are Tathagata in a sense, not in the sense of we have the Tathagata Garbha, which is the Buddha nature, but in the sense that we are Tathagata in the literal sense, because Tathagata means the one that goes as it should, right? Tatha meaning as it is, and Gata means to go, going as it is or going as it should. So we all go as we came. We came from, let's say, even though putting it a little bit lightly, too lightly, but we came from nowhere and we're going to nowhere, in a sense, okay? So that just as we came, there is no permanence. We came from an impermanent cause, and then we go into an impermanent object or an expanse. So therefore, as we came, we go. There is no staying, no permanency. So therefore, in that understanding, we are all Tathagatas. Not in the sense that Tathagata as a Buddha, but Tathagata in the sense that as we came, we go. So therefore, here Tathagata is a reference to just ordinary sentient beings, or just all of us, even though it was posed, the question was posed in a way that it was being asked referring to the Buddha, but it was not referring to the Buddha. It was referring to just every sentient beings. The reason being the intention of the questioner. When the questioner asked that question, even though he phrased it as Tathagata, he was not referring to the Buddha as Tathagata. He was referring, because the concept of Tathagata, as explained in the Buddha's teaching, is not accepted by the heretics. So therefore, even though they are using the term Tathagata, their reference of Tathagata is totally different from how we understand Tathagata. So it's similar to saying, it's similar to for me to say that my father is coming to see me today. My father is here with me. So when I say that that phrase, and for those who have seen my father, you have a vivid imagination of how my father looks. But then for those who have not seen my father, you have your own imagination of my father. So even though the concept that we use, my father, is similar for all of you and myself, but the idea, the vision of my father is different for me and to you. So similarly, that even though the same term Tathagata was used, but how Tathagata was envisioned by the questioner versus the Buddha, as well as the rest of the readers here, is totally different. So in any case, yeah. So Tathagata, even though the term is reserved for the Buddhas, here it's referring to just everybody. And even though in the question itself it says very clearly, does the Tathagata exist after nirvana? Here, nirvana means liberation. Nirvana is translated as liberation, and liberation here does not mean liberation from samsara, but rather from life itself. So basically, when the questioner asked, is there does the Tathagata exist after death? So 4 questions regarding does the Tathagata exist after death? Sorry, does the Tathagata exist after nirvana, after liberation? Does it? Does it not? Does it both? Or does it neither? So that was the question. So that was the first set of 4 questions. The second set of question is, does the self, the person or the self, so self is synonymous with the person. So does the self and the world, is the self and the world permanent, eternal? Is the self and the world eternal or not? That was the question. So the self is referring to the person, and the world is the world in which the person lives, or everything that person enjoys or suffers through. So world does not necessarily have to mean the world as we know in general, but a world is the place or the environment that a person lives in. So when usually we say, okay, in my world, this thing cannot be this. In my world, this is not possible. In your world, it may be possible, but in my world, it's not possible. Sometimes we say things like that, right? So my world basically means my surrounding, my surrounding basically means the things that I could see, I could touch, I could enjoy, I could think of. Everything that is under subject of my experience is my world. So another way to refer to that is the person and the experience of the person. That is the self and the world. So do they exist eternally? Do they not exist eternally? is it both? Is it neither? That was the question. That is regarding the past. So basically, there's two questions regarding the self and the world. Two questions meaning one is regarding its past, the other is regarding its future. Two sets of questions, two sets of four questions. Yeah, so that makes it up. That makes up 8. So the two sets of past question is whether the self and the world is eternal. Has the self and the world been here since beginning? That was the 4 sets of questions in regard to the past. Now in the future, does the self and the world has an end or not? So does the self and the world has an end, doesn't have an end, has both an end and does not have an end, and is neither? So yes, no, both, and neither. Then the last question, the last two questions were sets of one question. So basically, it is about the body and the self, or the life force. So here, life force. So even though the question itself was regarding life, but life and self were understood to be one by the questioner. So is life and body, or is self and the body same? Is one? Is not one? Is both? Is neither? So like that. So last only 2 questions. Sorry, is the body and the self is one, meaning the body and the self is one. There is no body other than the self, and there is no self other than the body, right? So body and the self is one. That is one question. And the other question is, the body and the self is separate. The body is not self. The body cannot be self. The self is not the body. The self cannot be body. So one question is the body and the self one? That is one question. And the other question is the body and the self separate? One, not as in number one, but one as in, whether it is one thing, it's the same thing. Yeah, that is whether the body and the self is one, or is it separate? Basically, there's 3 sets of 4 questions and 2 additional questions, so which makes up to 14. Yeah, 14 sets of questions. So if you look at the question, the 14 questions on its face value, it's not that difficult. I mean, it's very difficult for us to answer the question, but for a philosopher, it's not that very difficult, especially for someone like the Buddha, who is an enlightened being. On the face value, the question is not that challenging. It's not that difficult to answer that question. Those 14 questions. But somehow, the Buddha ended up not giving answer. He was not meditating or anything. He was just sitting there. But when he was posed those questions, he was asked those questions, he did not give any answer, yes or no, or both, or neither, nothing. So he was asked 14 different questions, and he could not, or he would not respond to any of them. When they asked the question about the Tathagata existing after nirvana or not, so basically that is, does a person exist after the death or not? And it's a very easy question from a great philosophers such as the Buddha's point of view. There's a very, very easy question. After death, there is life, because we have rebirth, etc. So there will be next life. You'll be born in one of the 6 realm. It will continue to go on, etc. So it's very easy to think. At the face value, the answer is very simple. Yes, there is life after the liberation. There is does the Tathagata exist after liberation? Yes, the Tathagata does exist after liberation. It's very easy to give a yes or no answer to this. Same goes with does the self and the world, are they permanent? Are they eternal? They're very simple. They're not eternal. They are not permanent. Mm. They have not been existing since the beginning, even though the continuum of the self and the world has been going on, but the self and the world has always been changing. Yeah. Um, and does it exist after? Does it have an end? Does the self and the world have an end? And so on and so forth. These questions are simple to answer from a face value. Mm. Does the self and the world have an end? So the intention behind that is, the meaning behind that is there an end to samsara? Mm. And of course, there is an end to samsara. If there is an end to samsara, that means um, the self and the world does have an end. Mm. And is the body and the life same or not same? Are they one or are they separate? It's also simple. They are not same. They are not one. They are separate. It's very simple to answer from a face value. But Buddha could not or would not provide answer to any of those questions. Mm. Now, even though it's a very simple answer, even we can answer that question. Uh, like, but the Buddha could not or would not answer that question. And the main reason behind that is we, if somebody asks this question to us, we can easily answer that question. But the Buddha does not answer that question. And the reason behind that is we do not understand, we do not know, we do not understand um, the intention and the mental disposition, right? Mental capacity of the person who is asking that question. So, because we do not have the proper understanding of what the person is thinking when they're asking that question, we can give a very generic answer. We just look at the book and then we say, okay, this is yellow, this is red, this is blue. We can just quote from the book. Yeah. Uh, because we do not know the person's intention and the mental capacity or the mental disposition. But because the Buddha knows, can read the person's mind, to put it simply. Uh, uh, because the Buddha can understand that person's mental capacity, mental disposition, background, intention, and everything, for that reason, the Buddha would not answer those 14 questions. So the reason why the Buddha would not provide an answer is because the questioner, the heretics, when they ask the question, when they're mentioning the names Tathagat, right, which is you, which is me, which is all of us, Tathagat, because we are all Tathagat in the sense that we go as we came. So Tathagat, or when they mention the self, the self meaning the person, which is I'm a person, you are a person, we are all persons. Or when they mention the life force, which is synonymous with self. So in every occasion, when they're referring to the person, they are not referring to an ordinary person. They are not referring to a person as it is. They're actually, even though they are phrasing it as the person, the Tathagata, the life force, etc., but deep down, what they're asking is a person that is intrinsically existent, a person that is independent of um, a person that is existing independently. A person. So the idea is that all the for example, like the person and the body, me and my body. My body is dependent upon me, right? My knees, my fingers, my hand, my head, everything is dependent upon me. So the aggregates, right? The aggregates meaning the eyeballs, the ear, etc. These are the dependents, okay? And the person, me, I, is independent. I am independent. I am intrinsically existent. I am there on my own accord. But my hand, my action, my family, everything that revolves around me is dependable. I am independent, right? So with that understanding, all beings, all persons are independent, right? So with that intention, the questioner is asking with that sort of intention, the I that is independent, does it have an end or not? The I that is independent, is it eternal? The I that is independent, that is intrinsically existing, does it exist after liberation, etc.? Even though they are not phrasing it that way, but they're thinking the intention when they mention the word the person, the Tathagata, the self, they're not referring to a ordinary self. They are referring to a self that is uh, intrinsically existent, that is independently arising, not dependent arising, but independently arising. And so, because of that, the Buddha did not Buddha did not answer. So, to make it a little bit simpler, I give you an example. So it's like you are arrested for murder, and you are in a court, and the prosecution lawyer is asking the person that you killed, the person that you murdered, did he suffer? Did he not suffer? Or both? Or did not? Right? One set of question. Another set of question, the person that you murdered, did you use a gun or a knife or both or neither? The person that you murdered, did you um, um, make any physical uh, sexual advances towards that person that you murdered? You did not, or neither. So basically, the question that, so any answer that you provide, right? The very question was the question itself, that the topic itself started with the person that you murdered, right? Did you use a weapon or not use a weapon, or did you assaulted this and that? So the question itself is what we say in a philosophical term, the question itself was twisted, convoluted, because the question starts with the person that you murdered. So if you say, I did not use a weapon, it means you are actually agreeing to the fact that you murdered that person. The person that you murdered, did you use a weapon or not use a weapon, or both or neither? So whatever answer you provide, you are already accepting the fact that you murdered someone. So therefore, there is no escape. So whatever you say, you agree that you are the killer. So therefore, the question itself is twisted, it's convoluted. So that's one of the reasons it's called the wrong view, because the answer, the questioner covered the heretics, they covered the question in such a way, packaged it in such a way that if the Buddha gives any kind of answer, then he has to agree to their conditions, their terms and conditions. So because the Buddha understands the questioner's mindset, their mental disposition, their intention, and everything. So therefore, any answer that the Buddha gives will be harmful to them. Harmful to them meaning, okay, I will answer why it's harmful then. Yeah, so it will be harmful for them. That's why the Buddha did not give any answer, so he kept silent. Another example, the $200 that you owe me, right? The $200 that you owe me, are you going to give me this month, next month, neither, or both this month and next month, or so either or neither, right? So the $200 that you owe me, even though I'm phrasing it in such a way that the $200 that you owe me, even though I say, oh, I'm using the term owe, but in my mind, I know that you stole, I'm thinking that you stole it from me. For example, let's say, when we were kids, we were given pocket money by our parents and the elders. And sometimes when someone is not present, then, okay, give this to your younger brother or give this to your elder brother who is not present, right? And then you're supposed to give it to them. So let's say your younger brother or your elder brother, so basically one of your brothers, thinks that you have actually pocketed the pocket money given by your parents or one of the uncles. So your brother thinks that you have pocketed, okay? You have pocketed one of the pocket money that the uncles gave. And so you're not giving it to me. So what I do is I ask my brother, the money that you owe me, sorry, the money that you borrowed from me. So even though I did not borrow it from you, because in my mind, I know or I think that my uncles gave this money to me. So it is mine. You owe it to me. But since you're not giving it to me, so I'm putting it nicely and saying, when are you going to give me the money that you owe me, you borrowed from me? Are you going to give it today, tomorrow, both, or neither? Like that. So it's a similar, it's a different situation, but the context is same. So even though I'm phrasing it as the money that you borrowed from me, but what I'm thinking in my mind is the money that you took from me, that you stole from me. So whatever answer I give, if I say, okay, I will give that money tomorrow, that means I'm going to give the money tomorrow, but I did steal that money from you. I did take away your share. If I said I will not give you your money, that means I'm not only giving you the money, but I'm also accepting the fact that the money that I'm not giving you is actually yours. Yeah. So whatever answer I provide, I end up being guilty, right? So therefore, the questioner, the mind of the questioner, when they mention the word self, person, Tathagat, they're referring to a self-existing, intrinsically existing, independent Tathagat, independent self, independent person, something that is existing inherently. So therefore, any answer the Buddha provides falls into wrong ears. So if he says that Tathagata does not die, that Tathagata does not exist, it's not helpful because he will think, oh, that the self-existing Tathagata does not exist. So Tathagata actually does exist inherently, but when they enter nirvana, then they disappear. Then they disappear. Until then, they exist inherently. The self exists eternally. If the Buddha says the self does not exist eternally, then they would think, oh, the self does not exist eternally, but it does exist in an inherent way. Even though it's not eternal, but it is inherent. So whatever answer the Buddha provides, it falls into the wrong ear. And so for that reason, the Buddha would not give any answer to them. And rather than to make them, rather than for this the Buddha's answer to be fallen into wrong ears, and then for them to strengthen their grasping of inherent existing, yeah, their to grow their ignorance rather than growing their ignorance, it's better to make them think that the Buddha does not have an answer. Hmm? So the reason the Buddha cannot share is because there are those heretics. So heretics are not just ordinary people. They are very well learned. They are very learned. They are philosophically, their mind is philosophical. Their mind is very highly developed philosophically and ideologically. So when you have a very developed ideological mindset or ideologically developed mindset, uh, then it's very difficult to deconstruct. There is another term for this nowadays. They call it um, spiritual ego. Yeah, and you can call this philosopher's ego. Hmm. So when you become learned and the more knowledge you have, the more egotistic you become. Of course, when you reach the epitome, when you reach the peak of knowledge or realization, of course, then you realize there is nothing to be proud of. There is nothing to be egotistical. But when you reach around the middle, when you reach around the neck of the of uh, of your philosophical of your spiritual uh, path or philosophical path, you think you know everything. You are, So basically, ego plays a big role here, and with ego comes attachment, and from attachment comes ego. From ego comes so they give birth to each other. Hmm? So what happens is for someone who, because the Buddha understand their mindset, they have a very highly developed. Their mind is very highly developed philosophically. So what I'm trying to say here is that their mind, the grasping of the self, the grasping of they're grasping on the uh, independent self. They're grasping of the uh, inherent existing self is very highly developed through philosophical, ideological conditioning. So another word for that is hell-bent. So their mind is very difficult to deconstruct their mind in a short instance. So they come to ask question to the Buddha within a few minutes or within a few hours for the Buddha to deconstruct their mind, which is built for very highly developed. That kind of mind, to deconstruct them is very difficult. And so in that short period of time, the best answer is not to give an answer. So if it's just an ordinary person like you and me, then the Buddha can easily give an answer, yes or no, or right or wrong, and can make long deliberation, long explanation too. But to these people, any explanation you try to make to them, right, it will not go into their mind. You know, they're saying like, like when two academics meet, then they always argue because my my idea and your idea, my understanding, your understanding, they always keep arguing. When two academics meet, they always argue because they always think that their side is the right thing, right side. Um, and the saying, it's easier to fool someone than to tell them that they have been fooled. So to tell to to tell the um, to tell the heretics that they have been wrong, they're not going to accept that. So telling them the truth, rather than telling them that they have been fooled or they are in the wrong side, it's better to fool them by making them think that the Buddha has no answer. So in this particular instance, it's better to keep silence. So by not telling them, by fooling them, by not telling them, by not explaining, by not telling them on the fact, the truth about the uh, these questions, not responding to these questions, the Buddha was doing a greater service for the future of these heretics. Because by not responding, right, they are not able to, their ego, their philosophical ego, their philosophical grasping of the self is not strengthened. Yeah. So for that reason, the Buddha did not give an answer. So the reason I went through this quite extensively is because it's important to have a background understanding of what this whole thing is about. And then the Buddha, it is said in the sutras that the Buddha not giving an answer actually became the best answer for them, because that way their ego was not emboldened, even though they came out thinking that the Buddha was Buddha has no answer, Buddha was a fool, but it did not. If the Buddha gave an answer as to that the self exists intrinsically, the self exists inherently, and that it's independently arising, the kind of ego that they would have if the Buddha gave an answer in such a way is much graver than the ego they would have by thinking that the Buddha was a fool. So to think that Buddha was a fool it doesn't hold much value. But if their idea of the self that is intrinsically existing, if that sort of idea or ego derived from an intrinsically existing self, if that persists, then it has a long-term damage for their karma, for their actions in this life, and then in their future life, consequences, etc. So therefore, the Buddha not providing an answer became the best answer. So there's a saying in speech is silver, but silence is golden. So we have a saying in English that silence is golden. So sometimes keeping your mouth shut serves a lot of purposes. So the reason, so there are many occasions that Buddha showcased that, and in this particular, when he was asked a direct question, he did not answer any, he did not give any response. By not giving a response, it became a great lesson for all of us. So the reason, the reason this was spoken here, so the context here is that because they do not understand, because they not only not understood that the self, the Tathagata, the person is free from inherent existence, is not inherently existing, is not independent, but dependent, originating. Because they did not understand them, and not only they did not understand them, they were actually misinformed. Yeah, there is misinformation, right? They were misinformed that the self is inherently existing. The person is independently arising. The Tathagata is intrinsically there. That was the misinformation. So these were misinformed. And from this misinformation, and we all have that misinformation. We all have that misinformation. And without knowing, without expelling that misinformation, we are stuck in the ignorance of such ignorance of the ultimate truth. So not knowing these, the self being inherently, the self being free from inherent existence, the self being dependently originating, not independent, the person free from intrinsic existence. That is the reality. And because we are unaware of that reality, we are ignorant beings. We are ignorant. And now, so the context here is this. Because of that ignorance, we are being born in samsara. Not only born in samsara, but stuck in samsara. So for the last few months, we were talking about the suffering in the hell realms, the suffering in the human realm, all this here and there, all because we are in samsara. Why we are in samsara? Because of our ignorance. And why the ignorance was there? What is that ignorance that the Buddha is talking about all the time? It is the ignorance of the ultimate truth. And what is the ultimate truth? The ultimate truth is that nothing exists inherently. Nothing exists independently. There is no one single thing that exists on its own. But we think they do. We were misinformed, disinformed, ignorant, and think that everything exists on its own, everything is independent. And because of that, every decision we make, every judgment that we take, everything goes wrong because we started wrong, and all the steps that we take are mistaken, erroneous, wrong, and that's why we are constantly suffering in samsara. So because of the ignorance, we were stuck in samsara. So if it is ignorance that that is what got us in samsara, then how does ignorance, from ignorance to suffering, how do you connect the two? The suffering and the ignorance, how do you connect the two? So to answer that, the Buddha himself shared the concept of the 12 links of dependent origination. And so Nagarjuna also expanded on that, commented on this in the following lines. So the reason we are talking about the 12, the 14 views that the Buddha did not share opinion with is because it is directly related to the 12 links of dependent origination. So because the questioner, the heretics, they are unaware, misinformed, ignorant of the ultimate truth. So therefore, they ask a question to which the Buddha did not share his opinion with, and that ignorance is what brought us to samsara and kept us in samsara. So if that is how it works, then how do you connect the dots with from the ignorance to your suffering directly? So in order to explain that, the 12 links of dependent origination was explained in the next verse. So the 12 links of dependent origination, starting from ignorance, ignorance basically means being ignorant, being unaware. So ignorance is usually likened, the example of ignorance is someone who was in a total darkness. So when you are in total darkness, you do not know where to go. So you may fall in a pit, you may hit the wall, etc. So therefore, whatever action that you do, you are doing something, but without any knowledge, any information. So imagine a person without eyes, or someone who is blind. Then that person, unless that person is helped by some other object like a walking stick or a walking dog, service animal, something like that, the person on its own cannot do anything. Any decision, any walk, any direction that the person goes, solely depending on the eyes, it will go wrong. They have to depend on the ears, they have to depend on other senses to get it right. So like that, ignorance is the root cause of everything. So because of ignorance, because we are ignorant and we do something, so you are blind, right? You cannot see, but you have the desire to get out of the bed and do something. So what you do, you get out of the bed, you try to walk, but because you cannot see, you stumble, you fall, you hit something like that. So ignorance is the first of the 12 dependent links. So with ignorance, when you do something, that is an action, that is the karma, volitional action, right? A volition, an action that you take because you cannot see clearly. That action that you do also becomes an erroneous action. If you can see the right thing, then what you do will also be right. But because you cannot see the right thing, so the steps that you take, the action that you commit, the karma also becomes a wrong karma, negative karma, erroneous karma. And therefore, the cycle goes on. The 12 links of the dependent origination is usually displayed in mural painting, wall painting in the monasteries. Outside the temple, just at the entrance of the temple, you can see those painting in something called the wheel of life. Yeah, in the wheel of life, you can see them. So the first thing is ignorance, which is likened to a blind man or woman. So the imagery is used is that someone shot in the eye with an arrow. So that person, they could see before, but then once you get shot in the eye, you cannot see anymore. Then you are fumbling and stumbling. So that was ignorance. So that is the basic, that is the fundamental misunderstanding of the ultimate reality. That self does not have an intrinsic existence, intrinsic value. So not understanding that is the ignorance. Okay. Now, out of ignorance, you commit an action. So the action is called karma. So we try to give a very, even though karma is very important, but the way the way we think of karma is we actually substitute karma for God. Even though as Buddhist and many and Buddhism does not accept the idea of a creator God, a God that created the universe, the world, etc. We believe in karma and etc. But the status that we give to karma is equal to that of a God. So when we say everything is due to our karma, we think there is a person or a force or something supernatural that is called karma out there, who is making judgment and giving, who is deciding, that is deciding who is right, who is wrong, and then delivering judgment, etc. like that. That is not the case. When we talk about karma, one of the biggest mistake is that when we talk about karma, we always use the karma in our mind. We always use the karma with the capital K. I think I explained this earlier with the capital G, God. So in Buddhism, we accept the idea of God, but with a small g, not the big G. So big G means basically the one God who controls everything. Small g means basically a different form of beings. Yeah, there's animal being, there's human being, there's God being, like that. It's a celestial being, not someone that controls everything. Same with karma. When we talk about the concept of karma, if you read many Dhamma books, they always write karma with a capital K. Actually, it should always be small k, to kind of to downplay the role of karma. Even though it's a very important thing, we're not talking about one universal karma that covers everything. Whenever we talk about karma, we're talking about individual karma. Your karma, my karma. I eat bad food, I have to go to the restroom. That's my karma. It doesn't have anything to do with you. You eat spicy food, later you have pain in the stomach. That's your problem, not my problem. So everybody is going through a different karma. That is individual karma, right? Of course, there is something called collective karma. That is only when we accumulate a karma collectively. We do something good together, collective karma, good collective karma. We do something bad together, it's a bad collective karma. Other than that, every action that we do individually has individual karmic consequences. So when we talk about karma, it's individual always. Even when we talk about collective karma, it's a good collective karma. We enjoy, even though we enjoy together, but the joy itself comes individually. Let's say as a family gathering, we are all enjoying a good food, even though we say, okay, we are all enjoying together, but I am not enjoying your wine. You are not enjoying my chicken, right? You are enjoying your food, I'm enjoying my food. So even though we say we are all enjoying together, even then we are enjoying separately. When we say collective karma in a negative sense, we are all suffering. All my family members are suffering, but they're suffering differently. My father has a headache. My mother has a stomach ache. I have a backache. That's different form of suffering. I mean, individual suffering, individual joy. None of this is like one thing that covers all. Not like the sun. We enjoy we experience the warmth of the sun. Not like that. Karma is always individually experienced, whether it's a positive karma or a negative karma. Even when it's collective karma, it is experienced individually. So that's very important. So karma should always be minimized. The capital, writing capital karma with a capital K is basically the it comes from the background when you have a very strong belief, when you have a very strong upbringing in the theistic tradition, then when you use the term karma, you also give the status of God to the karma, which it is not. As important as it is not one thing. So in the process of the ignorance giving birth to your suffering, ignorance giving birth to all your suffering, as well as the samsara itself. So in that context, ignorance is the one that starts your life, that starts your very existence into samsara itself. So in that context, the 12 links of dependent origination is separated into two sections, two segments. The first two, ignorance and karma. Ignorance and karma. Ignorance and karma is part of the previous life. And then from then onwards, from number 3 to number 12, it's part of the next life or the future life. So I'll tell you why. So in the context of ignorance giving birth to samsara, or ignorance in the context of ignorance giving birth to life itself, right? Ignorance and karma are part of the previous life. Previous life meaning the life before you experience the karma. You experience the consequence of the karma. So, for example, in this lifetime, out of ignorance, you steal from someone, right? So it's part of this lifetime. And then when you die in next life, right? Then the, the rest the the rest of the 10 dependent origination follows in the next life. In this life, you have ignorance, and with ignorance, you have the karma. You commit a karma, you commit an action. So not knowing, that is ignorance. I steal from someone, that is karma, right? And the result comes in next life. It's not always next life, but in the context of ignorance creating samsara, suffering, life itself, in that context, the first two should be part of the previous life, and the rest 10 should be part of next life. But then there are many cases where these mingle with each other, mix with each other. So in any case, ignorance is like a blind man or woman, a person shot with an arrow into the eye. That is ignorance. Then karma, in that iconography, that image, karma is likened to a potter making a pot. Someone making a pot. Yeah. So that person is making the pot. So it's a creation. So there he's committing to an action. Like that. So we will not be able to complete the 12 dependent links today. So I will, because there's a few questions in the chat box. So we will pause here for today. Then I will go to the questions now. Okay. So the first question is, I find it very difficult to maintain concentration when visualizing while reciting mantras. In such a case, does the recitation of mantras still have benefit? So I will continue to read the whole question. It's a very long question. So if your mind is not able to concentrate, does the reciting mantra still have benefit or not? That was the question. The first segment of the question. Yes, it still has benefit. It has the mantras are words that are blessed by enlightened beings. And so for that reason, even just by chanting it, just by chanting the mantra, without any understanding the meaning, with a distracted mind, okay, not understanding the meaning. Even if you understand, you are distracted, yeah. And even if you chant with the negative mindset, okay, it still has the benefit, okay. It still has benefit because it was blessed by enlightened beings, that just by chanting, just by hearing the mantras are very powerful. But of course, there will be consequences. For example, if you chant a mantra with a negative, I say, if you chant a mantra with a negative mindset, there will be benefits, but there will be consequences too. Think of that like a side effect. So when you take a medicine, there is a benefit, and then some medicines have side effect too. So if you chant a mantra with a negative mindset, the benefit will be there. That is on a different set of accounting. But the consequences are also there because you use it for a negative purpose. So the consequence will also be there. So there are different. So in any case, if you recite mantra with a distracted mind, there's still the benefit. Then the question continues. I sincerely hope that Rinpoche could kindly guide me in a simple daily meditation practice to help stabilize my mind. So, simple meditation to stabilize the mind is to focus, or what we say in the Dharma is place your mind. So, when I say place something, like when you place this cup on the table, it just stays there. So, place the mind like that. So, with the term we use is place the mind. So, to place your mind on a holy object like a Buddha, like your teacher. You can also use your loved ones, but what happens most of the time is that when we think of our loved ones, then we become a little bit attached. Yeah. If the loved one is no more with us, then we get emotional, and so basically, uh, you know, we don't want to become too emotional. I mean, we can be emotional. There's nothing wrong with being emotional. What I'm trying to say is, if you want to get a stable mind, right? The question is stability of the mind. When your goal is to have stability of the mind, then you don't want to become emotional, because emotional doesn't make your mind stable. There's nothing wrong with being emotional. Don't get me wrong, because when we practice spirituality, we do get emotional a lot of time. Okay, but when your goal is to have stability of the mind, right? The the shamatha, or the stability of the mind, uh, then emotional is not the thing. So you may not be able to. So the best is to focus on the Buddha, the image of the Buddha. Buddha is very simple. Many deities have like 4 or 5 heads, tens or thousands of arms, etc. So it's difficult. So image of the Buddha is very simple. Just focus on the Buddha's image. Look at the Buddha's image with your eyes opened, then slightly close them, and then try to project that image within your mind. So, with your eyes closed, right? So then, if your mind is getting a little bit dull, lazy, then open your eyes more and then look at the picture. Um, if you're getting too excited, your mind is getting starting to get more and more distracted, then close the eyes a little bit tighter. In any case, you will be distracted multiple times, and not to worry about that. Every time you get distracted, just come back. Coming back is the key, right? It's impossible to not to get distracted, uh, as we are. Yeah. Um, as ordinary beings, we will always be distracted. But distraction is not a problem. The problem, the challenge is to get it back. The goal is to get it back. It will distract, then just get it back, bring it back. It will be distracted, we bring it back like that. Yeah. In my family, there is a person who recited the Buddha's name but previously combined their practice with another path, such as root energy, and is no longer following that path now. Would this be considered a betrayal of the Buddha's teaching? So the answer is no, it's not a betrayal of the Buddha's teaching. In any case, um, to betray means you have to be Buddhist first, and then you like jump onto another thing. But so it depends on whether you are previously a Buddhist or not, right? In any case, um, would it lead to rebirth in hell? No, it will not. Okay. Uh, what should I do to help them? Uh, so you can help them by sharing genuine Dharma teaching, like His Holiness teaching, or the Buddha's own teaching. Uh, nothing, nothing, nothing complicated, nothing sophisticated. Very simple Buddhist teaching. Because when it's Buddha's teaching itself is very simple, and because it's simple, like if you read the Buddha's own teaching, it's simple, and because it's too simple, people think this is not the right thing. Because everybody thinks that, oh, Dharma has to be very sophisticated, very high, very sacred. It's sacred in the sense that it's very precious, right? And because Buddha's teaching is available for all, it's simple, it can be practiced by everyone. Then people think, oh, this is not the right one, because Dharma should be something very difficult to practice, something very hard to get, something very inaccessible. something very special, something only shared by one teacher to another student, very sophisticated. Only then this can be good. If it's available to everyone, you, me, my enemies, the people I hate, my neighbor, then probably this is not the right path. That's what we think. And it's wrong. Buddha's teaching is very simple. And if you do not know what to do, then always go with the simplest path. Like that. Yeah. The next question is, in which I have a question in the third part of the Lamrim, how to listen and transmit the teaching. It says that the master should know who can receive and cannot receive the teaching. Can we consider it comes from there, the 14 unanswered questions? Mm. So it's related to, exactly. So these are directly connected. Yeah. Even though I'm not sure this thing was like sourced right from here, but it is directly connected. And for the teacher as well as the student, from the student side, you have to when you hear that someone is teaching, then you have to do a little bit background research of the teacher, especially with internet, everything today these days very easy. So you have to do a research and to be sure, oh, I can take that person as my teacher. I can respect that person as my teacher. If you feel like that person is very knowledgeable, very informative, very charming, but I'm not sure that he can be my spiritual teacher, then you should not go and attend his teaching. Should not go. Even if you go, you can go there as an observer, like a interviewer, right? Like like a TV interview. So when the TV interview guy, when you interview someone, they do not have like devotion, respect, that kind of. I mean, there is a respect, but no devotion, nothing of that kind. You're just asking question as a to individual. So you can go to different teachers. If you do not know much about them, you can go to a teacher, go to a teaching, attend the teaching as an observer, right? Not take that as a like that. From the teacher's point of view too, also always observe which student you want to, which of the attendees you want to take as your student. Take does not mean take home or anything like that. Take means accept. So I accept you as my teacher, you accept me as your student. So in order for me to accept you as my student, I have to know that you are eligible for the teaching that I can share. As an honest teacher, I have to know that whether I can actually change your life, make your life better, bring some benefit to your life or not. If I cannot bring anything benefit to your life by sharing, if you already have more knowledge than me, if you already are more experienced than me, then even though I may hold the title of a Rinpoche, Geshe-la, whatever, by giving you some teaching, I'm wasting your time, you're wasting my time, we are both wasting our time. If your experience and your understanding of the Dharma is already on a higher level than mine, there is no um, consider no point. Yeah, it's consider um, meaningless for me to be a teacher and you to be a student. So the teacher has to know whether the student is eligible or not. Yeah, and if the student the student is eligible to be accepted, the person is eligible to be accepted as your student, then the teacher accept them, and only then the teacher-student relationship, the guru devotion, that this whole thing develops only from then onwards. Just because you are sitting at a venue and the person is sitting on a throne doesn't mean you are the teacher and I am the teacher and you are the student. It doesn't mean exactly like that. Yeah. For time constraint, I will end the session here for today. I think there's one more question, but we'll pick it up later. Okay. Thank you so much, and then do the dedication. Kewa di nyurdo da lama sangye drugyurun Chowa chikyan malu kegi sala ke bara sho chanjo semjo rembo Magye bana manke gyuro je keba nyamba me bara Kone kondo me wara sho me anze ve de jin jin jesi de me I can be wine bon jan be yang gan de boy my lu jo man ze sang wen da gan je gen ben cho ge zong gan Nam san jan be shai lai soi wan ne lo san jan be shai lai soi wan Tenpe nyingpo zinpen penga shin naman do yu kun la chanchu lopsan shue ye kiamzo chugun do tengen roden tambar shabde show.
Thank you, Rinpoche La.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you,
Rinpoche
everyone.
La.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rinpoche.